Hey everybody, my name is Hunter. I live in Virginia. This is my carving shed. Today's video, if you saw the thumbnail, is about putting inlays, resin inlays into skulls. I carve skulls with a Dremel, and one of the skulls that I've carved with a design, we're going to be putting some inlay, some resin inlay into the design. So that is the topic for today. Stick around. Okay, first things first is what you actually need for this. We are using a UV resin as opposed to a two-part resin. It's much easier to work with, in my opinion. It hardens up extremely hard. Really great stuff. You're gonna love it if you've never tried this before. The uses go beyond just the resin inlay that we have here today. But you're gonna need some UV resin. You are going to need some dye to mix in with the resin. You're going to need some type of little containers to mix the resin in, and you are going to need lots of sunlight or a specific UV light for curing resins. Okay, so the process for adding a resin inlay is pretty straightforward, nothing too difficult, but there are three things I want you to keep in mind related to skulls. Number one being skull, the bone can be very porous, so if you put the resin in your little space, wherever you're trying to put the inlay in, there is a possibility that it will seep into the porous areas of the bone around it. Then you just won't get a very good clean look. Prior to putting in the inlay, just add a light clear coat to that area, and that will help fill in all those little pores, and that way the resin doesn't seep into the bone. And number two, I'm going to break out the whiteboard again, so don't freak out. With carving any type of inlays, just in general, okay, it's a good idea to add a lip around the inlay. That way it secures it into your negative space. And by that I mean, say if we have a little space that we want to put an inlay in, you would cut the area like so, so that when you pour in the resin, it will fill in this area right here, and this locks it into that area so it doesn't pop out. A great way to do that, and what I've used for this carving, is an inverted cone burr, and you can cut into the side of those edges when you are cleaning up the edges of the design, and that will help lock in and create a true inlay for your design. And then lastly, because a skull has lots of contours to it, the resin it's liquid, so it's going to try to level itself. You may have to compartmentalize your design if it's really large in order to contain the resin in an area so that it doesn't just drip off of the skull. Generally speaking, it's not that big of a deal, but throughout putting in the resin, the inlay, you're going to see me adjusting the skull so that whatever part I'm working on is as level as it can be, and that will just help prevent that resin from dripping out of the area that we actually want it to be in. So just mix in a little bit of your UV resin into your container. Don't have to do a lot. Small batches is going to work better. And then add in your coloring dye, and it may take a few times to figure out kind of what shade of color you want, but just mix it up. And do remember to work in a vented area. This stuff does not smell that great, so make sure you have well ventilated workspace. Just as long as you're not working out in the sun, your work time with the resin is going to be, a decent amount of time. You just no need to necessarily rush to pour it in, but just don't take forever. Then you're going to pour in the resin to the negative space that you've carved out, making sure that the skull is level, and you just want to fill that space up to level with the outside edge, or maybe just a little bit above will work as well. Then just hit it with your UV light, and that will begin the hardening process. The thicker the resin is, the longer time you're going to need, but honestly it doesn't take all that long. If you're using a light, it's set for like 30 seconds or so, thicker it is, you might want to do it a few times. Otherwise, if it's pretty thin, it'll cure within that 30 seconds or so. If the area that you're filling in is really small, you're going to see me using a toothpick and essentially just putting little drops of the resin into there. That works really well. That way you don't overload it too much. But you're going to see I am spilling over a lot of the time, but we're going to come back over the whole thing and sand it down. The UV resin you can sand it down, works really great. If you can fill in your design kind of like in the middle there where we did, and it's not overflowing, you really don't need to sand it. But in this case, there's just a ton of little small areas, and there's no way I'm not going to be able to prevent it from spilling over everywhere. So we're going to sand it back down. Man, I really need one of them old school selfie sticks. So resin is cured. Next thing we're going to do is sand down that resin level to the surface of the bone. Please do wear a respirator. You do not want to breathe in the bone dust. I'm going to start with 220, then move up to 320, grit sandpaper, 400, 800, and 2000, and that will get us back to a polished look on the resin, and it'll look really clean. I hope you really like that. I do hope you give resin a try, especially with inlays. Gives a beautiful, shiny, kind of translucent look to it. You have a million different types of color options to choose from. Lots of different applications for this. I love this stuff. I mean, I use it for a bunch of other stuff, which I'll cover in the future. It's too much to cover in this video. But do give it a try. I hope you like it. If you're carving skulls, let me know in the comments below. If you're going to use this for another application that isn't skulls, let me know as well. We'd love to hear what you think. And if you got questions, hit them down below. Hit me up on Instagram. If you're not following me there, please do that. And if you're not subscribed and you watch my videos, do please consider hitting that subscribe button for me. It does help me out in the long run, so I appreciate that. I'll see you all next week.